Hi guys, it's Aoife from Fred VC Died Laughing and I'm here to do my weekly wrap up. This week in total I finished 3 books and I finished off an audiobook as well. My reading didn't go quite as well as I wanted to do. I know that sounds silly because I've had technically I have 4 books finished, but I don't know, I just feel like I could have read more. I don't know. And I got into a little bit of a book slump at the very start of the week, which I will talk about now, which never happens to me. And it's because of a book I read at the start of the week, which was The Empress by SJ Kincaid. If any of you guys have been here for a few years, you will know that I read The Diabolic, I think it was at the end of 2016, at some point in 2016. I read The Diabolic and I absolutely loved it. And this is kind of set in a sci-fi world. It is a YA sci-fi and it is about a creature called a Diabolic. Her name is Nemesis. She's human, but she is kind of created in kind of almost, I guess, a lab, and she is artificially made to be stronger and taller and bigger than normal humans because she's basically used as a kind of a bodyguard. And Diabolics are treated as, they're not full humans, they don't have a full range of human emotion, they don't feel things like love or compassion or empathy and stuff like that. And then one day, the family that Nemesis works for, the daughter is her very best friend, is the only person in the world that she does care about, or that she has the capability of caring about. They get in trouble from the basically the ruling king court and the emperor of this kind of galaxy, I guess. And the daughter, called Sidonia, is supposed to go over and basically kind of be, I guess, in a way, like a political prisoner in a way, and she's kind of going to be stuck there in the court. So they end up making Nemesis look like Sidonia and send Nemesis in Sidonia's place to try and protect Sidonia, and it kind of goes from there. And I read the first one, I really loved it. I just thought it was excellent. I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So I was really looking forward to this one. Even though I finished The Diabolic, I presumed it was a standalone. It was one of those kind of books you could read as a standalone. I will still tell people you can 100% read this book as a standalone. You don't have to go on to the second book, but I was curious because I loved the first one so much. I would go on to read the second one, and I hated it. It's a bit of a weird one for me because there were just certain things about it, just the way it went, the way this book went, particularly the last section of it, I just felt really angry and I felt really kind of taken advantage of in a way as a reader. I just think some things that happen didn't need to happen maybe, and I just hate when things get flipped the way things were flipped in this book, and it's really plays with your emotions. And I felt like I'd been taken advantage of, and I felt angry, and I felt disappointed, and it just really annoyed me. But obviously I can't say too much because they'd be massive spoilers. But I did give this a 2 out of 5 stars. The writing in it was fine, the writing was good, it was just the story was bad. I will obviously be leaving my linked review down below if anyone is very curious and does want to read that. So I have a couple of lines in my review that I wrote the next day because I finished this at 1 AM in the morning. I stayed up to read it. I finished it. I couldn't decide what I wanted to read next because normally I would change that straight away on Goodreads. And then I went to bed, got up, didn't know what I wanted to read. I didn't know what I was in the mood for because this book, I just kept thinking about this and kept trying to think about my feelings and how I felt about it, and I was just basically trying to sort it out in my head. And I went the whole morning without picking another book to read. I brought my Kindle with me, obviously. I read a bit of a magazine on my way into work, but yeah, and that never happens to me. I'm always straight on to the next book. I know exactly what my next book will be, so it was really odd for that to happen to me. So I wrote a written review while all my feelings were still very fresh. And I will say, one of the bits I will have that I'll just read out that kind of just explains how I was feeling was, "This book is depressing, and by that I mean by the halfway point I couldn't see any way out for the characters he fell in love with in Diabolic and continued to love so far in The Empress. It kind of felt like those scenes in the Titanic when all the metal hatches are being closed off except Nemesis, Tyrus and the readers were the ones left to drown in the engine room." And then one of the other ways I had to describe how I felt about this book was it just ripped up everything I loved about the first one, shredded it, ate it, and then shit it out. And that kind of sums up my feelings. And I think I don't really have to say anything more about that because I've already been going on for ages about this. So after that book, I didn't know what I wanted to read, so I ended up picking up a horsey book that I had gotten on my Kindle, and that was Fortune's Fool by Mary Pagones. This one was actually exactly what I needed. It was just a breath of fresh air. It was just some horsey goodness that I really wanted. And this is about a boy called Simon. He's 18, and he's just finishing off school. He's not going to college. He's a really good rider, so he has gotten this kind of work placement in this really good yard. and right before he goes he ends up buying this horse on a whim that he sees in his local stables, and he just has a feeling that this horse kind of needs a good home in a way, and this horse could be really good for him. But the horse is quite green, not really quite green, but he kind of needs a lot of work. So this horse goes to the stables with Simon, and Simon kind of starts working on him and realizes there's a lot of stuff he has to do to improve this horse. And he is just kind of like, this whole book, like, there's nothing really like super duper, like there's not this like twisty plot in this book. It's really literally just Simon going to this stables and doing his job and trying to become the best eventer he can be, which is like a cross-country dressage and show jumping, and I just loved all of that. I just loved seeing his daily life in the stables. I just loved him talking about the different shows he went to. And then Simon is actually gay in this as well, so he ends up having a little bit of a really cute relationship, and I just loved his relationship so much. It was just really nice. I just felt it was a very healthy relationship. I just really loved this book. It was just so great. The only thing about it is that I would say is that Simon is a huge fan of the Killers, the band, and he would mention them a lot, and he mentioned a lot of like music and pop culture quite a bit, and sometimes that would drag me out of the story because I myself am not a huge fan of the Killers. I think I've listened to a few of their songs when they're on the radio, but I would never go out and seek out their songs myself. So a lot of the stuff he was talking about sometimes kind of went over my head and would take me out of the story, and I wouldn't really care about what he was talking about, where I would prefer him to go back and like talk more about the horses. And as well, because this isn't kind of one of those YA tropey books when it comes to horse books, where, you know, you kind of get the horse and rider are both terrible and they're both kind of working together. Both Simon and Fortune are both, you know, they're both kind of strong to begin with. They're not going from zero to hero in a way. They're not even going to hero. Simon knows that Fortune isn't that kind of horse that he'll miraculously suddenly become like suddenly start winning everything. They're just really more just working together and improving together very slowly. But I also felt that like in a lot of the younger YA books you see, there would be a bigger bond between horse and rider, and I missed that in this book. I didn't think that Simon had as strong a bond with Fortune as I would have liked to see in my horsey books. Just one of those things. It might be just because this is more of an adult book. It's actually more of like a realistic book. But yeah, I just missed that a little bit. But overall, I did really enjoy this. It was a breath of fresh air. It was exactly what I needed. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And then after that, I reread Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertali, which is obviously love Simon. And this is a reread. I read this in 2015. So it's been a few years, and I just really wanted to read it before the movie came out. And I also, with the week that's been in it, in between like a bad book slump and the news, I wanted something that would just give me those warm fuzzies inside, and so I picked this up, and it was 100% the right decision. I just love this book. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars the first time I read it. Second time around, I'd probably give it a 5 stars because it just did exactly what I needed to do. It just made me smile, and it made me feel all gooey, and Blue and Simon are just so adorable. And when you're reading it the second time around and you're seeing all those little things that you didn't see the first time around, and like I literally just forgot how cute they are, and I was literally just smiling the whole time I was reading this book. I just love it so much. I really do need to read more Becky Albertali, because so far this is the only one I have read of her. I still haven't picked up On the Upside of Unrequited, which I do really need to do. But yeah, I just absolutely love this. It's just fantastic. And as I said, gave me the warm fuzzies, which is exactly what I needed after this week. The audiobook I finished off this week was The Railway Man's Wife by Alison Hay. This is like a historical fiction set in this kind of seaside Australian town. I think it's in like the 50s or the 60s, and I think it's the 50s. And it's basically following this woman called Annika after her husband is killed in a train accident. And this is kind of one of those very quiet novels where nothing huge happens. We're just kind of following Annika as she slowly recovers from this terrible loss that has happened to her. We meet other couple of people in this town that are also broken in this way, and they all kind of come together and form this friendship, and in a way they're all slowly starting to heal from the different things in their past that have broken them apart, and they're learning that they can enjoy life again, and they're kind of going on like that. And there's a real love of readers and books in this book as well, because one of the characters is a poet, and then Annika gets a job in the library as well. So they're talking about like book love and Jane Eyre and like books they love, as I said, poetry they love. It was just a very quiet, beautiful book. The best word I can describe about this book is I would say it's very soulful. The narrator for this was Edwina Wren, I think her name was, and she was perfection. She was so great. All the accents that she did were fantastic. One of the characters in it is Scottish. His accent was just so lovely. Now sometimes the Scottish accent I find can be, if you're not used to it, it can sound very guttural and very harsh, where this one was lovely and soft. Like, I could genuinely fall asleep listening to her voice, but like in a really good way, if you know what I mean. She's just so soothing and so calm. This is a really calm book to read, I would say, even though it's quite melancholy, I would say. It's also very like almost musical. Like, the way it's written is just so melodical, and it's just really, really beautiful. It's very beautiful writing. The narration was beautiful. It just made me feel very serene and very calm, and I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I was going to give a 4 out of 5 stars, but unfortunately the very, very end of it took me a little bit by surprise, disappointed me, because I was not expecting what happened to happen, and it was definitely something I didn't want to happen. So yeah, it took me a little bit by surprise, and I was a little bit disappointed by it, so I'm just taking a little bit of a star rating off. So I'm going to be 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I would genuinely give the narration for this 5 out of 5 stars because I thought she was absolutely brilliant. That's everything I have read this week so far. Please let me know what you guys think down below, all your thoughts, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye!